Hey there, I hope you're well. Welcome back to Verbose DevOps. This video today, if you're a cloud DevOps engineer who needs to know how to use Git in week 1 and you've never used it before or barely ever used it before, then this is the video for you. I'm going to show you for week 1 of your work how to use Git, and almost all companies are using Git. It's the most popular source control tool out there. I'll be showing you hands-on exactly the commands that you need to survive week 1. Just what you're looking at now, similar to GitHub or GitLab, on Codeberg I've got a repo called Git demo, and there's just a couple of files in there. This is what we're going to be working with, and I just want to show you here. These are the commands, the beginner bare minimums for week 1 is what I call them. This is what we're going to go through now. So let's start with git clone. So the clone URL will typically be here in the repo, somewhere like mid-right, and I'm not going to tell you why you should use HTTPS or SSH. There's different use cases and different preferences. For today I'm just going to use this SSH one, so let me go back here. I'm going to do a git clone. Let me clear the screen. Git clone, paste that in, and it'll create a directory the same name as the repo, in this case git demo. So let's go in there and I'll clear the screen. We're going to have a quick look at the files in there. So remember, just those 2 files, nothing else, so that corresponds very well. Now something you've got to do, unless you've got global settings, you do need to do git config for any repo that you clone if you're going to be making changes to it. So in this case, so you need to set up the name and the email. This way you'll be able to do sign commits that you make. If you don't set this up correctly, you won't be able to communicate upstream and sign commits. It just won't let you. So I'm going to put here, luckily most repos you don't have to put in your real email address that people would then be able to see in the Git logs. So instead what you can do, like I'm doing now, is they'll give you what's called a no reply email address. So this will work just fine. And there we go, that's it. So let me clear the screen. Let's do a git status. This command, you're going to be running this more than any other command, git status, because it's constantly going to be telling you which branch you're on, whether you're up to date, and then any other relevant info. Right now we haven't done anything, so it looks pretty slim, but you'll soon see that it'll get full up with stuff. So let's create a file. I'm going to call this just file1.txt. And let's run that git status again, and you see it now looks slightly different. It says there's untracked work, and you can use git add. What git add will do is it will stage that work ready to be committed. It will put it in a staging area, so we can use git add for that. So let's do what it says. And by the way, I don't have to type out the whole thing sometimes. If I just press tab for completion, it knows what is unstaged and needs to be added. So let's do that. Now let's do a git status again, and there'll be a difference. You see that now, from red and now to green. So it's not saying there's any untracked work, but it's now saying in this staging area you've got a file and to be committed. And by the way, it does give a hint here that if you want to revert what you just did, then there's a command there for that. But we're not going to cover that today. That's just something, a bit of useful information for you. So let's commit this file. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the screen. So git commit, and then you want to do a -m for message, and this is obligatory. You must put a message in. So in this case I'm just going to say add file1, nothing special. And you can see it gives you some general info. If we now run the git status again, it now says something different, nothing about added file or stage files or anything like that. But it's telling us that we're ahead of origin main. So we're ahead of the Codeberg site, the remote repository. We're ahead at the origin by 1 commit. And it says use git push to publish your local commits. So let's follow the advice. We're going to go with git push -u origin main. Some people just put git push, but I like to be very specific, because otherwise sometimes you just don't get what you want. This is what we want. -u for upstream, origin, branch called main. And we get some info there, and it basically says a lot of positive things, and it all looks good. So if I now run a git status again, then you can see it says that we're up to date with origin main and there's nothing to do, and we're still on. This means local branch when it says that. Okay, let's look over here now, and you see here those are the two files. If I now refresh this page, and you can see there is file 1, and it even has the commit message there that we put there. So that looks super cool. That looks great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate someone else, another developer, pushing other files to this repo. And you wouldn't normally do it through this web interface. They would do it the same way we just did. But I'm just doing it here just to save me having to simulate that. It's just a bit easier for me. So I'm going to call this file2.txt. So imagine they're working on something completely different. And I'll just put here, this is file 2. Okay, and scroll down. Like I said, you would never ever do any work this way normally. So I'm going to say add file 2. And we'll leave everything else as default. Commit those changes. And it looks like it's done it, but let's go back to the main screen. And there you can see file 2. Great. So let's go back to the terminal and let's clear the screen. So we'll just check again, the same thing, but it still says the same as we saw a few minutes ago, that we're on branch main. It says you're up to date with origin main, but this is confusing because it doesn't really know. So what we have to do is we have to do a git pull. And there we go. It pulled some stuff down. It fast forwarded. It got that file number 2. And to confirm that, if I do a file listing, there it is, file number 2. So that definitely worked. Now, so far we've been doing our work. If I do a git status, we've been doing everything on branch main, and we've been pushing to main. And in real life, you never ever do that. You always work on a development branch, and there's then a process to merge that branch into main, a human process, an operational process. So we're going to run through that now. What we're going to do first is we're going to create a new branch. So I'm going to say, let me clear the screen. I'm going to say git checkout -b, and we're going to call this, I'm going to call this dev 001. So often it might be a ticket number or like a story number or something like that in whatever task tracking system that you're using. So in this case, I'm going to pretend that there's one called dev 001. What does this mean? Checkout means to move from one branch to another, but this branch doesn't exist yet. So we add this -b to say that we're creating it right now. And there we go. Switch to a new branch, dev 001. So if I wanted to go back to main, for example, I could go git checkout main. It says switch to branch main. If I want to go back to the new branch that we made, you can see I don't need this -b anymore because it's not, we're not creating it right now. We just did a few seconds ago. Git checkout dev 001. And there we go. Switch to branch. Let me do a git status so we can have a quick look at this. So on branch dev 001. Now what we should do before we do any work next, let me clear the screen, is the remote site, the Codeberg website, it doesn't know about this branch, so we need to tell it. So let's push this. Even though we haven't done any work, there's no changes compared to what's already in main. We need to push this. So git push upstream origin, and you can use a different name, but it's really not advised. So we're going to use the same name, dev 001, and it's going to push this upstream. And there we go. It's pushed that, and just give us some informational stuff. Right, well, that's great. So let's do this first, git status. So yep, we're on branch dev 001, and your branch is up to date with origin dev 001, so it knows that. And now there's nothing else here really to say. So let's clear the screen. and remind us what files are here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify one of these files. So if I go vim file1.txt and insert something to say this is an added line, and I'm going to, you don't need to know this, but I'm going to escape :wq right quit just to save it. So if I now do a cat file1, you can see that's now been added. Now what you can do now, if I go git status, so just like before, it's telling us that there's a file that's been modified and we can now add it. Now in week 1, this is enough modified to tell you that you have a change that's untracked. But there is another command that you'll get to know probably in week 2, but I'll give you a preview now. And let me clear the screen, which is git diff. And you see there, it actually shows what you added, and it shows it as a plus to say that this is an inserted a positive modification to file1.txt. So I just thought I would show you that, and that'll make more sense shortly. So what we're going to do now is, although we could go git add file-1.txt, I want to show you a shortcut, but use this with caution, especially if you have several files but you don't necessarily want to commit all the changed files. But you can use this git add dot, and it will do the same. It will just add everything that needs to be staged that has been modified. So just a little tip there, and let's say git status, and there we go. It knows that file's been staged or added, and it's recommending that you can commit it. So let's do that. Git commit -m for message, quotes. In the quotes, I'm going to use a slightly different way. I'm going to say line addition. Every company has their own ways that they like people to do commits, and this format is known as conventional commits. You may want to look that up. It's kind of interesting. And there we go. Let's clear the screen and do a git status. And it says that we're ahead of the origin by 1 commit. So it recommends doing, obviously, a git push. So let's do that. Git push upstream to the origin, and we're going to call this dev001. And there we go. And it's actually very similar to last time when we pushed, but there was nothing to push. Now it's saying here, create a new pull request. So a pull request is, again, it's like an organizational process where you make a request to merge your work that's in a branch like dev001. You make a request that you want to merge it into main, and this is giving you a link to do that, and I'll show you how this works. We're going to go through the process right now. Now I don't need to click that link. Actually, there's another way to do that. I could click it, but I just want to show you that if I just refresh this page, then it shows some activity. Look, you pushed on that branch 1 minute ago, and there's a button, new pull request. So let's just click on that. It's the same thing. Summary is from branch dev001, merge it into main, and there's a diff down below. That's why I wanted to show you that diff earlier. It's doing a git diff basically. So let's do a new pull request. And even if you're doing solo work for your personal projects, I thoroughly recommend you do these pull requests. It shows that you have a process, and employers really like it. So it took this from the commit, and I'm going to keep that there, and I'm just going to make something up here. I'm going to say fully tested and validated. You know, just completely make that up, but you would put some useful comments there if needed, and then create the pull request. Just takes a few seconds. Okay, pull request has been created, and it typically will look like this: repo dash pulls dash and then the number. So number 2, because I did one earlier. And then what you would do is copy and paste that URL and send it to a coworker or someone with the rights to approve pull requests. So let's say that I'm that person. I'm now looking at this. I can see the comments. I can look at the individual commits, or I can go straight to the files changed to look at the complete picture of what's changed, and I can see that that's the diff, that a line was added because it's green and it says plus. And many of these software even have like a review thing that you can put in there. I'm not going to do that on this occasion, but you can do that as part of your workflow if you want. So I'm just going to go back to the main page. And on other GitLab and GitHub, there may be a big approve button, but on Codeberg there's this one here, which is pretty much the same thing, and it's saying create a merge commit if you're happy. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm going to accept all the defaults, and I'm going to delete the branch, the development branch. And this is pretty typical to delete that, because otherwise it's just a lot of clutter. So I'm going to delete that as well, and I'm going to create the merge commit and wait a few seconds. And it says the branch has been deleted, but it also says here merged. Great. So if I now go back to here, then we can see that that line addition has been made. I mean, I can click on that and there it is. This is an added line. Something I didn't show you earlier was we could have actually looked at all the different branches here, but that branch that we pushed, dev001, we just deleted it a few seconds ago, so it's now deleted. But that's how you switch branches. Now look, let's go back here and do a git status, and we're on dev001. So let's check out to main, and it says up to date, but if I do a cat on file 1, there's nothing in it. It doesn't have our latest change from the pull request. So what we need to do is a git pull, and now it really will be up to date. There you go. Fast forwarded file 1. If I do a cat file 1, it's now up to date. So there is also the local branch dev001 left over, and periodically you can do a cleanup, but for now we don't really need to worry about that. So those are the essential commands that you need as your bare minimums in week 1. Now, here are some other commands that I recommend you start learning in week 2. You don't need them in week 1. You can get away with it. Basically, some of these will be regular, but a lot of them will be only once in a while. And there are things such as how to revert staging or adding files, how to revert your commits, merge conflicts, which is when your coworker may be working on the same files as you and you disagree, and a lot more. But in week 1, if you're a complete beginner to Git, you do not need these, in my humble opinion. And also, a lot of people, they use them so infrequently, even experienced programmers, that you end up having to use a Git cheat sheet. So I recommend that you just Google for that, because many of us, if you're not using these commands every day and only have to do it once in a while, you need a reminder as well. I don't even think the inventor of Git will remember every single Git command and all the use cases. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're a complete beginner to Git, then I think you should be okay for week 1. And in the meantime, I just want to say, please like and subscribe this video, or like this video, subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this, and check out my other videos. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye bye.